There is a difference between someone hearing you and someone truly seeing you. People can hear your words. They can respond to the sentence, not at the right time, be kind, and it can all come from a good place, but still somehow miss the target of who you are entirely. Because being heard is not always the same as being known. Sometimes what lands deepest is not that someone answered you, it's that they caught what you meant. Not just the request or the facts you gave, not the surface level of what was said, but the meaning beneath it. The part that was offered emotionally but couldn't be verbalized. The part you secretly hoped was interpreted as, "This matters to me. I hope you notice. I hope I do not have to explain all of it again for it to count." And I think this is part of why some moments stay with us for years, whether it's good or bad. In this particular episode, we'll focus on the good and we'll cover the bad in the upcoming series. Either way, though, they both impact us at our core. The good lingers with us because in that moment, someone considered us closely enough to reach something deeper than the obvious. They noticed who we were in it. And maybe that is what we are often longing for, far more than we admit. Not just love, approval, or attention, but recognition. That feeling of, you saw it and you saw me in it. So you understood what it meant to me. And that lands in a place that is very difficult to describe, but almost impossible to forget. So much of life is lived in partial translation. We say a thing one way and hope the heart of it survives by the time it reaches the other person. We mention a preference, but what we are really revealing is desire. We point to something small, but what we're really giving is an invitation to ask for more details. We tell a story that seems casual on the surface, but we're really offering a part of ourselves. For them to notice what mattered to us, to hear the shape of us inside it. And when someone does notice, when they pick up the thread without us having to drag it all the way into the light, it does something. It reassures something within us because being deeply seen can feel like relief and acceptance. Relief that you do not have to over-explain, that your meaning did not get lost, or that your interior world is not entirely invisible. And I don't think this begins in adulthood. I think many of us know this feeling from very early on. When a child shows you something, a drawing, a rock they found, a thought that came out clumsily, a story that was told badly but earnestly, and the surface version of that moment looks so small. But the deeper version is not small at all, because beneath it, that child is often asking, "Do you see what I am trying to share? What made me so happy? Do you see me enough to exist in this moment with me without interruptions?" And children know the difference almost instantly. They know the difference between a polite response and genuine regard, between "that's nice" and someone actually kneeling down, looking closely and saying, "Oh, you worked hard on this part. Look at those details. Tell me about that." That kind of attention does not just respond to the object, it responds to the person. And I think a lot of adults are still carrying that same longing, just far hidden in our secret selves. We may not hold up drawings anymore, but we do hold up parts of ourselves all the time. Maybe in the way we decorate a room, in the song we send to someone, in the recipe we make for someone, in the details we mention more often than once to see if anyone catches it, in the little preferences that seem unimportant until someone remembers them. We are still offering pieces of ourselves, still hoping someone notices, still hoping someone understands that what looks small is sometimes carrying something far more important to us. And maybe that's why certain moments hit us with so much force, because the impact is not only in what was done, it's in what was understood. A gift can be nice, a gesture can be sweet, but what undoes people sometimes is not the thing itself. It's the realization that someone paid attention, that they listened past the sentence, that they noticed what was cared about without having to beg for it. They remembered, connected, they reached out. So what could have been interpreted as a nice act became something else entirely. It became evidence that they were not just present, they were attuned. And attunement has a kind of emotional gravity to it, because attention by itself is not always intimacy. Plenty of people pay attention for the wrong reasons, to manage or persuade, to appear thoughtful or caring. But genuine consideration feels different. It isn't a performance. It's not self-congratulatory. It's less interested in being seen as caring and more interested in actually caring well. That is why intention and response can feel so different. Someone may intend to be loving, but still miss the actual person in front of them. They may give what the other wants, say what makes sense to them, respond in a way that seems objectively fine. And yet the other person walks away feeling unmoved because they were responded to, not reached. And there's a great distinction there, because response says, I reacted to what was presented, but seeing says, I noticed who was inside that. Response can stay at a level of manners or correctness. Seeing requires something a lot more precise. Curiosity, care, observation. And this is where so many people ache without even having language for it. Because the wound is not always that nobody ever did anything for them. People may have responded, but they didn't quite get it. People were around, but they didn't really notice. People loved them in broad, general ways, but missed the places where recognition could have changed everything. And broad love can still leave a very specific loneliness behind. That loneliness of, I don't know how to explain what is missing. Nothing looks obviously wrong, but something in me still feels untranslated, still feels like it goes unseen unless I spell it out completely. Still feels like I have to work to make my meaning survive. And there is a particular kind of emotional exhaustion in always having to do that, to always clarify, always interpret yourself, having to shrink your nuance into something easier for others to process. So when someone finally does catch you, when they notice the emotional shape of what you were saying, it can feel disproportionately bigger than the moment looks. You may cry harder than expected, pause longer, feel more moved than you can even explain. But maybe it's not disproportionate at all. Maybe it's just cumulative. Maybe it's all the times you were partly heard, but not deeply understood. All the times your intention got flattened. All the times your offering was missed. all the times you told yourself it should not matter this much. And when someone finally gets it, not perfectly or mind readingly correct, but just enough, enough that something in you says, there, that is what I meant. And your whole body knows before your mind can even explain it. Because being seen is not only emotional, it's psychological. The body responds to safety, to attunement, to being met. Something unclenches, something stops bracing, something that had grown used to not expecting much becomes absent for a second. And even if the moment is brief, it leaves a mark. I feel that's why adults still remember certain childhood moments with startling clarity. The teacher who noticed they were trying even if the work was messy. The relative who remembered one tiny detail that nobody else took seriously. The parent, grandparent, sibling, friend, whomever, who picked up on what mattered and treated it like it mattered. People remember those moments because they were not just being managed, they were being considered. And consideration is one of the purest forms of emotional tenderness because it says, I paid enough attention to meet you where you actually are, not where someone assumed you were. And maybe that's what makes recognition so powerful. It restores specificity. It rescues us from being dealt with generically. It tells us we are not just another person passing through someone else's busy life. We are a person with shape and texture, and somebody noticed. I wonder how often people reveal themselves through what seems minor. A passing comment, a minor detail, a softness in their voice when a certain topic comes up, the way they linger around something meaningful without naming it directly. It's funny how so much of human longing does not arrive as a formal declaration. They arrive as hints, almost throwaway sentences that are not throwaway at all. And if we're not paying attention, we miss them. We answer the sentence, but not the person. We respond to the information, but not the offering. We say something back without realizing we're standing at the edge of someone's inner world at that moment. And that moment mattered. I don't want to rush past this because underneath many requests is not just desire, it's disclosure. Underneath preference is identity. Underneath, I like this, or I always wanted, or I just love to fill in the blank. There is often a shadow sentence trying to make its way through, saying, this is a part of me. Would you hold it with care? And maybe what breaks people open is not only getting the thing, it is realizing their small offering of self was received, that someone cared enough to trace the line backward from the detail to the person, from the comment to the meaning, from the request to the heart inside it. That is why some gestures feel so different from others, because one says, I did something nice. The other says, I know something about you. One is pleasant, the other is piercingly moving. One can be appreciated, the other can be remembered for years. Because being seen touches identity. It does not just say you were included. It says you were recognized. And for many people, that is rarer than it should be. So rare sometimes that they barely know what to do when it happens. They may deflect it, minimize it, make a joke, or just act casual. But inside, something is shaking. Because a lot of people have learned how to function without expecting attunement, without expecting someone to really notice, without expecting another person to care about the parts that feel almost too small to justify. So when someone does, when somebody actually catches the meaning without making you fight for it, it can almost feel holy. Not because it's perfect, but because it is human in the way humans most need to be met, to be known, to be felt. And maybe this is also why being misunderstood can sting so deeply. Because when we reveal something, even something tiny, we're taking a risk. We're saying, here, this is a part of me. And when that part is brushed past, flattened, misread, or answered in a way that never touches the real meaning, it can feel like erasure, even if no harm was intended. That there is the hard part. Intention matters. Of course it does. But intention alone does not always create impact. Someone can mean well and still leave another person feeling unseen, which is not an accusation. It's just true. Because being loving is not only about sincerity, it's about perception. It's about learning to notice, to ask, to not assume that the surface version is the whole story. And maybe that is part of the tenderness here too. That to see someone well often requires humility. The humility to realize I may not yet understand what this means to you. The humility to stay curious, to not rush the moment, to not center our own logic so quickly that we lose the person trying to share themselves with us. That kind of love is not efficient, but it is deep. And maybe this episode is really sitting right there, in that place where recognition becomes its own form of care, where being reached matters as much as being answered, where a person feels moved not simply because something happened, but because what mattered to them was actually felt by someone else. It was noticed, held, and honored. And maybe that is why some moments become permanent, not because they changed the whole life, but because someone touched a very unguarded part of it. The part that still hopes to be understood without having to perform. The part that still hopes someone will hear the meaning inside what's mentioned. The part that still asks, will you see me accurately when I offer you something small? And when the answer is yes, when someone does, it can echo for years. Because maybe being seen is one of the closest things that we have to emotional rest. That moment where you do not have to keep translating. You do not have to defend why it matters. You don't have to enlarge your feelings to prove they are real. You are just simply met. And perhaps that is what people are longing for underneath so much of what they say and do. Not perfection, not constant attention, not mind reading. Just enough care that the deeper things are not missed. Just enough presence that what they meant makes it through. Just enough tenderness that they do not leave the moment feeling like they disappeared inside it. So maybe the question is not only, have I been heard? Maybe it is also, have I been known here? Have I been considered here? Did someone notice what I was really trying to give voice to? And maybe there's also another question living beside it. Do I offer that to others? Do I slow down enough to notice what is actually being handed to me when someone speaks? When someone repeats a detail? When someone lights up over something small? When someone shares a preference that seems casual but is really personal, can I feel the person inside the sentence? Because there is so much tenderness waiting there, so much of what people cannot quite ask for directly. And sometimes the deepest form of care is not solving, not fixing, not even saying the right thing. Sometimes it is simply an action that says, I noticed, I understood what this meant to you. I didn't let it slip by. That kind of seeing can change the trajectory of a life, not all at once, but in small ways. Enough for someone to remember, enough for someone to soften within themselves and others, enough for someone to feel, even briefly, I was not invisible. And maybe that is the power of feeling seen. Not that it makes us feel larger, but it lets us be real, fully real, accurately held, not reduced to the quickest interpretation. And truly, that is usually what stays. Not the grand speech, not the polished gesture, not even the event itself, but the feeling underneath it, the unmistakable recognition that someone caught what you meant and cared enough to answer it. Before we close, if Caffeine and Clarity has been a place for you to slow down and notice what's underneath things, you're always welcome to stay connected. You can subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. And if you'd like to support me, feel free to buy me a coffee or buy yourself something from our shop. The links are below. Here's your sip of the day. What moves us most is often not that someone responded, but it's that they understood what we were really trying to say. Thanks for being here. This is Caffeine and Clarity.